Good morning. Good morning and welcome to our celebration of Sri Krishna's birthday. We will be starting with group chanting of chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. I'll be putting that up onto the screen so you'll all be able to follow along. The nuns will lead the chanting and the reading of the English meaning of each verse. Then that will be followed by a talk by Aadesh Thakkar. He's going to be speaking on the relevance of Sri Krishna's teachings to modern life. We look forward to hearing that. Then we have the children from our children's class. They will be doing some chanting. And then we will have a talk by Pravrajika, Sridharaprana, and she'll be speaking on Krishna, the Krishna we adore. And then you're invited to stay back and get a share of some of the sweets and savories that have been offered. So now I'll call on the nuns to come up, and I'll be putting up the chapter 9 on the screen. Please join in with the chanting.
This chapter 9 we are chanting. Before that, we are going to chant just the meditation hymn, one stanza, one shloka. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Graditam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyamyanasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajñatva mokshase shubhat. The blessed Lord said, to you who do not cavil, I shall surely declare this most profound knowledge combined with realization, by knowing which you will be released from evil. Excuse me, you all can join the reading. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitramidamuttamam Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartumavyayam. The sovereign science, the sovereign secret, the supreme purifier is this, directly realizable, in accord with dharma, very easy to practice and imperishable. Ashraddhadhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Men devoid of shraddha for this dharma do not attain me, O oppressor of the foes, but return to the path of the mortal world. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakthamurtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitah. All this universe is pervaded by me in my unmanifested form. All beings exist in me, but I do not abide in them. Nachamatstani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta bhranna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Nor do the beings dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga, bringing forth and supporting the beings. Myself does not dwell in them. Yathakasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani masthani tyupadharaya. As the mighty wind moving everywhere, ever rests in the Akasha. Know you that so do all beings rest in me. Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punastane Kalpadau Visrajamyaham. All beings, O Kaunteya, go into my Prakriti at the end of a kalpa. I generate them again at the beginning of the next kalpa. Prakritim Swamavashtavya Visrijami Punah Punah Bhutagramamimam Krishnam Avasham Prakrite Vashat. Animating my Prakriti, I send forth again and again all this multitude of beings, helpless under the regime of Prakriti. Nachamam tani karmani nibadhante dhananjaya udasina vadasinam asattam teshu karmasu. Nor do these acts, O Dhananjaya, bind me, who remain like one unconcerned, unattached to these acts. Maya dyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Because of my proximity, Prakriti produces all this, the moving and the unmoving, the world. Therefore, resolves, O son of Kunti. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools disregard me as one clad in human forms, not knowing my higher nature as the great Lord of beings. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasah rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Of vain hopes, of vain actions, of vain knowledge, devoid of discrimination, partaking verily of the delusive nature of Rakshasas and Asuras. Mahatma nastu mam partha daivim prakritimashritah bhajantyananya manaso jnatva bhutadimaugyayam. But the Mahatmas, O Partha, partaking of the divine nature, worship me with a single mind, knowing me as the immutable and the source of all beings. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhridavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Glorifying me always, striving, firm in vows, prostrating before me, they worship me with devotion ever steadfast. Jnanayajnena chapyanne yajanto mamupasate ekatvena prathatvena bahuda vishwato mukham. Yet others sacrifice with the yajna of knowledge and worship me in various ways as the one, as the distinct, and as the all-fixed. Aham kraturaham yajna swadaham aushadam mantrohamahame vajyam aham agniraham putam. I am Kratu, I am Yajna, I am Swadha, I am the medicinal herb, I am mantra, I am also the clarified butter, I am fire, I am oblation. Pitahamasya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara riksama yajurevacha. I am the father of this world, the mother, the dispenser, and the grandfather. I am the knowable, the purifier, the symbol Om, and also the Rik, syllable Om, and also the Rik, the Sama, and Yajus. Gater bharta prabhu sakshi nivasa sharanam suhrit prabhava pralaya sthanam nidhanam bijam avyayam. I am the good, the supporter, the Lord, the witness, the abode, the shelter, the friend, the origin, the dissolution, the foundation, the treasure house, and the seed imperishable. Tapamyahamaham varsham nigrinamutssrujami cha amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham arjuna. I give heat, I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality and death. I am being as well as non-being, O Arjuna. Traividya mam soma bhuta papa yajnairištva swargatim prarthayante te punyamasadhya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. The knowers of the three Vedas, the drinkers of Soma, purified from sin, worshipping me by sacrifices, pray for the way to heaven. They reach the holy world of the Lord of the Devas and enjoy in heaven the celestial pleasures of Devas. Tetam bhuktva svargalokam vishalam Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti Evam trayi dharma manu prapanna Gata gatam kama kama labhante. Having enjoyed the vast world of the heaven, they return to the world of mortals on the exhaustion of their merits, thus abiding by the injunctions of the three Vedas, desiring objects of desires, they go and come. Ananyashchintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. To those men who worship me alone, thinking of no other, who are ever devout, I provide gain and security. Yogakshem. Yepyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Even those devotees who, endowed with Shraddha, worship other gods, worship me alone, O son of Kunti, by the wrong method. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvena tashyavanti te. I am verily the enjoyer and the Lord of all yajnas, but these men do not know me in reality, hence they fall. Yanti deva vrata devan pitranyanti pitrvrataha bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhyajinopi mam. Votaries of the devas, go to the devas. The votaries of the pitras, go to the pitras. To the bhutas, go the bhutas worshippers. My votaries come to me. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktya prahritam ashnami prayatatmanah. Whoever offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I accept that, the pious offering of the pure in heart. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yat juhoshi dadasi yat tapashyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you gift away, whatever austerities you practice, O Kaunteya, do it as an offering to me. Shubha Shubha Falairevam Mokshase Karma Bandhanaihi Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mamupaishyasi. Thus shall you be free from the bondage of actions, yielding good and bad results. With the mind firmly set in the yoga of renunciation and liberated, you shall come to me. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshosti na priyah ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. I am the same to all beings. To me there is none hateful, none dear. But those who worship me with devotion, they are in me, and I also am in them. Apichet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. Even if a man of the most sinful conduct worship me with undeviating devotion, he must be reckoned as righteous, for he has rightly resolved. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvaschantim nigacchate kaunteya pratijanehe name bhakta pranashyati. Soon does he become a man of righteousness and obtains lasting peace. O Kaunteya, know for certain that my devotee never perishes. Mam hi partha vyapashritya yepi syu papayonayah Shriyo Vaishyastatha Shudraste Piyanti Param Gatim. For those who take refuge in me, O Partha, though they be of inferior birth, women, Vaishyas, and Shudras, even they attain the supreme goal. Kim Punar Brahmana Punya Bhakta Rajashayastatha Anityam Asukham Lokam Imam prapya bhajasvamam. How much more than the holy Brahmanas and devoted royal saints, having come into the transient, joyless world, do worship me. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayanaha. Fix your mind on me. Be devoted to me, sacrifice unto me, bow down to me, having thus made yourself steadfast in me, taking me as a supreme goal, you will come to me. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yogo Nama Navamodhyayah. Om Tat Sat. That's it. Translation is not given. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll invite Aadesh to come and give his talk.
Pranams, Mataji, nuns, devotees, and friends. It's a privilege to speak today on this auspicious occasion and briefly talk and speak on our Lord Krishna. His stories have transcended centuries in history. He's recognized for his radiant blue glow, and his teachings really, really resonate today. Today, I'd like to touch on the relevance of Lord Krishna and his teachings to our modern day. But I'd love to cover three areas. One is a couple of there's many lessons from Krishna, but I really want to touch on a few that really resonate with me, that I really think are relevant in terms of how we live day to day. Secondly, I love the story and the imagery of Krishna on the chariot in the Mahabharata war. What does that mean? What does that signify? And thirdly, I'd love to talk about a couple of probably controversial pieces around Krishna's role in the Mahabharata and how he's seen and the complexities, but what does that teach us? His life is very, very deep and complex. I personally love reading about the Mahabharata, the stories of Krishna, and I'm going to try and have a little bit of structure, but I please ask you, grant me the indulgence of allowing me to share some of my own personal favorites and learnings with you today. And when I say learnings with you today, I'm a sporting fanatic, so I'm going to try and weave a bit of that in as well. Our world is one where technology, progress, success, wealth, materialism are growing in prominence. And as part of this, that we're then required to navigate complexities of career, relationship, family life, personal growth, which is then intertwined, and I would say often in opposition, with the pursuit of detachment, contentment, meaning, fulfillment. Krishna's teachings and lessons become even more relevant and even more evident when you distill them to their simplest forms as to how they apply to these concepts. So where do we look for these answers? My guide is usually the Mahabharata, the Gita, and stories from there. Before I go into all of that, just touching on a bit of history. So Krishna was born in Mathura in India over 5,000 years ago, and his birthday is celebrated as Krishna Janmashtami. He was born to Devaki and Vasudeva, and his birth symbolizes hope and liberation. He spent his early years in Vrindavan, had divine powers, and he was often very playful and very mischievous. We all remember the pictures of him in pots of butter and making lots of mischief. Krishna had several siblings. His most notable and most famous sibling is Balarama. And his teachings are most notably in the Gita, which emphasize righteousness, duty, devotion. But as I said, his role and character is often complex. He often reflects the dualities and the conflicts that we experience in our daily lives. His key factor navigating is this being his northern star, I would say, is his quest for divinity, ridding the world of evil in the most challenging of circumstances, and also a level of acceptance of just what is. So his relevance to modern life. It's been said that in a world where our lives are a whirlwind of responsibilities and aspirations and countless distractions, Krishna's wisdom shines like a lighthouse, guiding us through a storm. If I go to the first topic, one of the biggest teachings and relevances is balancing duty and inner fulfillment, the concept of dharma and duty. Krishna's words to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in the Bhagavad Gita are profoundly relevant. As they stand on the verge of war, with Arjuna facing the side of his own family, including his uncles, cousins, teachers on the opposing side, he's torn by his inner conflict. He hesitates to fight, but he acknowledges his duty to the world and himself. Somewhat harshly, I would say, Krishna perceives Arjuna's reluctance and he calls it a weakness of heart. In our modern lives, we find ourselves in very similar predicaments, trying to balance our duties, ambitions, personal desires. Krishna's teachings of performing our duties without becoming overly attached to the outcomes resonate. It's like facing that daunting mountain where the key is one step at a time. Remain confident in each step's purpose. In this day, that mountain analogy often overcomes that feeling of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm as we pursue success. At the core of Krishna's teaching is the concept of dharma, one's duty and purpose. In the Gita, Krishna encourages Arjuna to fulfill his duty as a warrior, even when faced with this moral dilemma. It's a really challenging situation. Fight for good, but to do so, he must decimate his family and his teachers. In some ways, the messages couldn't be more clear. To embrace one's purpose and responsibilities, even if it means enduring the utmost of challenging circumstances. In our lives, we encounter choices that test our values and our principles. And Krishna's lesson is very relevant. Align our actions with our duty and values to help us discover peace and fulfillment. One subtle yet very powerful lesson from Krishna in his conversations with Arjuna is to simultaneously engage his mind in devotion and his body in fulfilling his warrior duty. Another duality that can often be in conflict. It highlights the importance of harmonizing your spiritual devotion with our worldly responsibilities, a practice we should consciously incorporate into our daily lives. I think the second lesson was about selflessness and detachment. Krishna emphasizes the significance of selfless action and detachment from outcomes, echoing the principles of karma yoga, the yoga of selfless service, rooted in the belief that we possess an immortal soul. In chapter 3 of the Gita, Krishna talks of karma. Krishna's teachings here effectively say the path to liberation is not to avoid work, but perform those duties without selfless attachment to the outcome. In modern day, we would say, love the process, enjoy the grind. We're often taught that a life of service is a great privilege. Again, this tends to run contrary to what we are also often told, the pursuit of wealth and success, where we often aim to do less and live in comfort. Krishna explains to Arjuna that by embracing the path of selfless work, he will find contentment both in this world and the next. He goes on to say that one transcends all the bonds of karma, shedding the consequences of past deed, they can attain life's ultimate purpose. By disentangling ourselves from the results of our actions, we can wholeheartedly focus on the process itself. I'm a sports enthusiast. It draws parallels to this concept when we observe great athletes. While they may achieve significant fame and fortune, the truly great ones often express a deep commitment to the process. Their dedication, early mornings, tireless effort, unwavering pursuit of excellence resonates with this message. I don't know how many of you guys watched the US Open this morning. Coco Gauff, a 19-year-old, won for the first time. At the end of the match, she sat down and prayed. And they tested her faith. And they said, faith is really important to you. And she said, yes. She goes, I never pray for the outcome. I only pray that he give me the strength to give it my all. That was inspiring to see from a 19-year-old. The third lesson is about finding balance in life. Despite following selfless service, detachment, and putting your best in everything, is then the lesson of finding the balance in life. We live in an information age like never before. As we grow, we're told to work hard, play hard, get obsessed, and be relentless. But is that what our teachings say? Krishna's teachings on balance from the Gita emphasize a middle path, which is particularly pertinent today. His teachings encourage us to pause, reflect, be more, have a broader perspective. In the Gita, it's slokas 6:16 and 6:17. Krishna explicitly warns against extremities. It says that those effectively who eat or sleep too much, as well as those who eat or sleep too little, cannot succeed in the practice of yoga. It advocates moderation in all aspects of life. I remember when I was talking to Reverend Pravrajika Jayaprana Mataji once, and through high school and university, I would study from morning to night to get over my anxiety. And I'd be like, I'm doing so much. And she's like, that's great, but that's your duty as a student. What about your role as a son, as a brother, as a friend? What about your broader role? And I'm sitting there complaining, I'm doing too much. And she's kind of like, in one aspect, have a broader perspective. I think the fourth lesson, I'll briefly touch on this just, is Krishna's life as it talks about conquering adversity and resilience. Krishna's childhood stories marked his survival and dominance of many battles, right? There was the battle with King Kamsa, the demoness Putana, who tried to poison Krishna with her milk, but she had the life sucked out of her. Or there's Aristatasura, the demon dressed as a wild bull. Krishna's childhood shows us the ability to triumph over adversity, but also that resilience isn't merely about survival. It's about embracing life. Did we ever hear Krishna complain? Did we ever read about that? All you feel is his energy. In those stories, it's actually interesting to read that some of the demons also had to serve their duty and their punishment by being a demon and dying at the hands of the Lord, which actually serves as their karma and their release. But Krishna's life, I think, as a child is incredible in this way. It symbolizes our need to be resilient, endure with grace, and emerge stronger from life's trials. Now, if I might just shift to the second part. I've always been intrigued by the image of Arjuna and Krishna on the chariot, on the battlefield with Hanuman on the flag. But what does this actually mean? It's got profound philosophical and spiritual significance. It's a very, very powerful metaphor that conveys several layers of wisdom. One is probably the obvious one as a spiritual guide. Krishna as Arjuna's charioteer symbolizes the role of a spiritual guide and a mentor. In life's battlefield, Krishna provides guidance and wisdom to Arjuna. We all have our battlefields, whether it's personal, sport, work, health. We all have that. We all seek our spiritual guides and need someone to help us along the way. I think the other one is what it symbolizes is the inner struggle of oneness and enlightenment. Arjuna, in many ways, reflects all of us. Seeking guidance from the Lord and our inner struggle reflects our inner conflicts and our doubts. Again, once in my discussions with Mataji, she said, remember, you are both Arjuna, but you are also Krishna. Krishna's presence as the charioteer signifies the divine guidance available within oneself, the inner voice that provides clarity, purpose, and insight during those moments of confusion. This also gets to show the oneness and non-duality, the oneness between the individual soul and a universal consciousness. The journey Arjuna goes on also moves us towards understanding your true self, the battle between right and wrong, discovering your divinity within, and realizing the interconnectedness of all beings, something Arjuna sees and realizes as Krishna reveals his true self on that chariot. I love that image of Arjuna bowing at the feet of Lord Krishna, and you see the magnificence, the glory, the divinity of the Supreme Lord. Another level of symbolism is of humility and ego. The charioteer metaphor reflects significant humility. Despite Krishna's exalted status and supreme being, he takes the role of a charioteer, a position often associated with subservience. The message, the ego should not impede our quest for spiritual growth. What does the chariot represent? The chariot is probably a representation of the body. Krishna's charioteer role is extended to a bit more deeper symbolism. Some have said the body as the chariot, the senses as the horses, the mind as the reins, and the intellect as the charioteer. This metaphor illustrates the need to control the mind, being the reins, which then controls the senses, being the horses, and the desires to reach your desired spiritual destination. And lastly, it's about duty and dharma. Krishna's guidance to Arjuna emphasizes the importance of duty and dharma and righteous action. By urging Arjuna to fulfill his duty as a warrior, Krishna emphasizes that life's purpose is found by adhering to one's responsibilities while transcending attachment to the results. So if I then move to the third part, which is Krishna's role in the Mahabharata and the war, it's a multifaceted, and he had a very pivotal role. He was a strategist, he was a counselor, he was a charioteer, he was a spiritual guide. Many say the actual battle occurred in the palm of his hand. The role he played dictated the outcome of the war. The moment Duryodhana chose Krishna's army and Arjuna chose Krishna as his charioteer, everyone's fate was set. Arguably before that, but it just became obvious. How could you lose a battle with Krishna on your side? When we think about the role he played, Krishna tried to stop the war through diplomacy and peace efforts. Before the war, he advocated for peace between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, who were poised to engage in the battle. It's often said, in an attempt to avert the war, Krishna went to Hastinapur as a mediator. Krishna requested the Kauravas return that city to the Pandavas. Duryodhana refused. Then Krishna scaled down the demand and said, we don't want the city, we want 5 villages, and both parties can live in peace. The inflexible and arrogant Duryodhana refused. He declared that he would not even yield an inch of land to the Pandavas, let alone 5 villages. I think the exact phrase was, he would not yield even the tip of a needle. In a final effort, Krishna explained what the damage would be, that the war would cause. And he further went on to say, the confrontation would be the beginning of the end of the Kauravas, and that should be avoided at all costs. However, the negotiation fell on deaf ears, and Dhritarashtra, the king, was powerless, and so the war ensued. Krishna's other role, he was a charioteer and a counselor. When Arjuna is overcome with doubt and moral dilemma, Krishna seizes this moment to deliver the Bhagavad Gita, providing Arjuna with the spiritual guidance and addressing the profound existential questions we all have. One of the most important parts that he played was the divine intervention, protection, and good over evil. This is quite often also quite contentious. Throughout the war, Krishna's divine intervention always protects the Pandavas. He's seen as often providing answers as to how to conquer the unconquerable. He counseled Yudhishthira on what to say about the death of Ashwatthama so they could beat their teacher Drona. He was the one who devised the plan to call on Ghatotkacha so that Karna would use his Shakti spear, which he had saved for Arjuna. He was also the one who counseled Bhima to strike Duryodhana in the thigh in the final battle to beat him. Krishna's divine intervention also protected Draupadi after the game of dice when Dushasana was attempting to disrobe her in front of the family. Krishna so often shields the Pandavas from danger and ensures their well-being. It's often subtle and in extraordinary ways. While often slightly contentious, his divine nature and his commitment to justice and dharma are paramount. He would stand for good over evil in all times, even when it came to members of his own side. One story in my readings, which I thought worth sharing, where we say he favored the Pandavas over the Kauravas, but when I say he did it to his own side, there's the story of Ghatotkacha, the son he was the son of Bhima, who was a Rakshasa son, so he was a demon. But he was also on the Pandava side. Krishna knew Ghatotkacha's power was rising. But he was ultimately a Rakshasa. So Krishna was quite certain he also had to die at some point during the war. At one point during the war, when the Kauravas were making great strides, Krishna urged for Ghatotkacha to enter. When he did, Ghatotkacha wreaked havoc on all the great Kaurava warriors. It was to such an extent that had he not been stopped, he might have actually killed all the Kauravas that evening. This forced Duryodhana to insist that Karna use that divine Shakti spear that he'd saved for Arjuna on Ghatotkacha. That spear was granted to him by Lord Indra and could only be used once. It would kill whoever it was aimed at. But as I said, only used once. Ghatotkacha was killed by that spear. And when he died, he enlarged himself and actually killed even more of the Kaurava army. But he played his role. As this happened, Krishna celebrated, as everything had turned out as to how he expected. Karna had used his spear, which had been returned to Indra. Arjuna was safe and could now fight Karna, and the Rakshasa demon was dead. Yudhishthira and Arjuna were actually struck by real grief at the time of his nephew. But again, another part of this story, which I'd only learned recently, was Bhima, Ghatotkacha's father, who was a profound devotee of Lord Krishna, showed no emotion. And his example is really worth noting. And it's often said, in the midst of all of this, Bhima, his father, maintained the greatest composure and showed no signs of grief at all despite his son's death. He was truly the personification of what we call Vairagya. The main reason for this state of composure of Bhima was his supreme knowledge of the situation. He knew fully well it was Sri Krishna's wish that Ghatotkacha must be sacrificed and Arjuna saved. Also, in the larger scheme of the Mahabharata war, it was inevitable that most had to die and only some would emerge. Thus, Ghatotkacha's death was predestined. I think the last story I'll finish off with, again, on the more contentious side, and it's one of the more complex and ethical dilemmas in the Mahabharata, is while Krishna's acts are often considered noble, they were also in some way considered a little bit cunning and strategic. And this was actually called out by Gandhari, the mother of the Kauravas. There's actually a very powerful part where it's near the end of the war, all of the Kauravas are slain, and Gandhari in her mourning calls out the role of Krishna and actually curses him. The story goes, Gandhari pauses for a moment and looks for someone to blame. And she says, if Yudhishthira is not to be blamed, there is one person who is responsible for the deaths of my sons, and that is you. It is you, Krishna, who is responsible for the war and its ramifications. If you wanted to, you could have stopped the war and avoided bloodshed, but you didn't. I'm aware of who you are and your immense power. Averting the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas would have been easily possible for you. Instead, you chose to be a silent spectator and did nothing. If someone deserves my curse, it's you. She then goes on to say, Vasudev, the day is not far off where your Yadav clan would be destroyed to the last man, in the same way that you destroyed us. Today, I stand here lamenting the loss of my sons. May a similar fate befall the Yadava women till they lose their sons and other members of their family. Much like the Pandavas and the Kauravas who fought with each other, the Yadavas too will fight among themselves and kill each other. Nobody will be able to stop their annihilation, even you. You will be a mere spectator, seeing the destruction of your clan. The Yadava women will beat their chests and mourn the death of their men. You have filled the lives of the Kaurava women with misery. And then there's you. You have killed your adversaries using trickery and deceit. You will also meet the same fate and die like an ordinary man. Everybody is stunned and speechless at Gandhari's outburst. How could a worshipper of Shiva curse Lord Krishna? But Krishna listened to her calmly, knowing that every word she said was going to come to pass. He didn't protest or offer any explanation. He accepted what is. Krishna's silence was the answer in itself. What is predestined will run its course. Look, in conclusion, I would say Krishna's role in the war is multidimensional, and so are his teachings, and they're timeless lessons. His actions reflect his understanding of the complexities of human condition, the dualities we are faced with between mind, body, soul, standing for the cause of good while being faced with mountainous challenges, accepting what is predestined and what is, but most of all, his commitment to achieving a greater good, regardless of choice and circumstances. These are all lessons I think we observe and aspire towards.
Thanks very much, Aadesh. There's a saying about war that in war there are no winners, only widows. And of course, yeah, thank you for highlighting the fact. Well, it's an allegory too. It's very allegorical, the Gita. We shouldn't be taking it too literally. Now we will have some chanting by the children. How will you like? Oh, yeah, I'll bring the cordless one as well. Okay.
Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Tam Sachanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru, the divine son of Vasudeva, the destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, the supreme bliss of Mother Devaki. I salute that Krishna, the Guru of the world. Mukam karoti vachalam Pangum langayate girim Yat kripatamaham vande Paramanandamadhavam. I salute that all blissful Madhava, whose grace makes the dumb eloquent and the crippled cross mountains.
Before that, Aadesh, wonderful talk. You had thought out very nicely. Very good. You brought out the stories. It's really good. We need to ponder about these things. Very good. Now, Om Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Salutations to Krishna, who has become the son of Vasudeva and the joy of Devaki, the boy of Nanda and the other cowherds of Vrindavan, the enlivener of the cows and the senses. Go means the cows and the senses together. That's it. So today we are celebrating the birthday of the birthless. Sri Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita, Ajopi sannavyayatma, though I am unborn, I subdue my prakriti and I manifest myself in this world for the good, for the protection of dharma. So, the birthday of the birthless. And Sri Krishna, the God, the author of Gita, he has affected the thought and life of Indian or Hindus for millenniums. And he has entered into every department of the life. It's art, it's music, it's philosophy, it's religion, it's dramas and dances and paintings. Everywhere you can see Sri Krishna is there. So he has profoundly influenced the Indian way of life. So today we are studying his life, but since it is Krishna's birthday, we need to contemplate on few of his incidents of his life. And he embodies the teachings. There's a saying in Sanskrit, teach what you practice. That is why if you are a teacher, you need to practice what you have taught. And that is what Krishna did. He taught what he himself practiced, what he himself did. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. Whoever comes to me in whatever form, I reciprocate in the same way. This we can see in the life of Sri Krishna himself. His mother, biological parents, and the foster parents loved him in Vatsalya as a child, and he reciprocated. And one thing about Krishna's life is that from the beginning till the end, never for a moment he forgot his divinity, who he was. Not so in the case of Rama. In the Valmiki Ramayana, Rama says, even when the gods and the rishis says you are the supreme Lord, he says, I do not know all this. I know I am Rama, the Dasharatha's son. So this is how he completely, he denies his greater dimensions and tries to behave as human as possible. But that's not so with Krishna. With Krishna, from the beginning, as soon as he was born, he straight away showed to his parents, he revealed himself, who he was. And then he gave the instructions, now take me to the Gokula and bring the baby born to Yashoda. See, from the beginning till the end, he kept on, he never forgot, till the last moment of his life, till his passing away. He always remembered his divinity. With all that, when somebody loved him as a child, he never expressed his divinity or his powers. For example, stealing the little butters and all that. And the parents ask, oh, little Krishna, can you bring those sandals? And he will try to lift, and he can't lift the sandals. he who supports this universe, he cannot lift the sandals of the father. And with great difficulty, he brings the chair for the father. And he can even lift Govardhan in this finger. And here he pretends as if he can't even lift a chair for his father. What do you call a small bench? So that way, lots of childhood plays are there which have become object of meditation. Rama's life is for imitation. Krishna's life is for meditation. You need to meditate on the life of Krishna. You cannot imitate. You cannot go and imitate and do like Ras Leela like him. That's not possible. You will be having a fall. But in the Ras Leela, you can see the Raso Vaisa, they say. Brahman is Raso Vaisa. That divine joy emanating, that you can contemplate. And then you yourself can feel within you that joy. So meditation on Krishna and imitation of Rama. This is very important to remember. So to Mother Yashoda, sometimes he did reveal his wonderful glory. One incident I like to remember, tell you all know it, but still, there's a saying in the Bhagavata, Swadhu Swadhu Pade Pade. The more you listen, the more you feel the taste and the joy. If you can feel that, then we know that we are progressing. That is the test of progress. You will never be dissatisfied. Every time you hear, every time you listen, the more you are interested, the more you enjoy it. Swadhu, Swadhu, Pade, Pade. Again and again, it tastes. Just like when you eat something, oh, it's so delicious. You feel the taste, you retain the taste. So the stories and the doings of Krishna, when we hear, it remains in our mind and it brings joy. And the very memory of that is why in Ramanuja's commenting on the Bhagavad Gita's Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Shloka, where we say every time, whenever the Dharma declines, I come forth to protect it. Ramanuja says, he gives a different angle of, in his perspective. He says, Lord is all powerful. He can set the things right. He's truth-willed, Satya Sankalpa, truth-willed. If he wants, he can set right things. There is no necessity that he has to take the form, embody himself. But why does he do? Why does he take birth? It's not just for dharma samsthapanarthaya. It's not just for that. It is there, of course, it is there in a larger thing. But as for sadhakas, what is he going to give? He is projecting an adorable form, contemplating on which the devotees raise above the samsara. That is the reason. That is the reason for why an incarnation of God comes to. Then just imagine that Parabrahma Supreme entering into this Panchabhut. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, this body is Panchabhut, made of 5 elements. And the Supreme Reality is getting into it. How difficult it is. But why does he embody? It's not an easy play. Why? Compassion, love, to help the sadhakas, to project an adorable form for them to contemplate on his Leela. That is why he does all this Leela. That is why Leela Dhyana is very important. In the meditation you have Swarupa Dhyana, you meditate on the true nature of God. How many of us are able to do it? What we think of omnipotent omnipresence in divine light? How many of us are able to think of it? That's why Leela Dhyana, Saguna Dhyana, meditating on the Leela, the doings and his qualities. So these qualities, they sink into us and they bring out a transformation in us. That is why these Leelas have to be thought of. Here, one incident, Mother Yashoda is busy doing things at home. She was, what do you call, wife of the chieftain. She had a lot of people to help, but yet she did all the things by her with her own hands, because Krishna will be she will be serving Krishna. Like, for example, churning the butter, she would do it by herself. There are servants to do it, but she wouldn't allow. She will do it by herself and she will feed her darling. That was the thing why Yashoda was always busy. And when they are busy, parents are busy, this little one is playing on the ground and doing all that. Children pray. And then he started eating mud. And immediately Balram is there, always protecting the younger brother, went and complained, Mother, Krishna has eaten the mud. And out of concern for his health, she asked, Krishna, have you eaten the butter? That's how he says. There's a little Krishna, beautiful it is. You see it, you will enjoy it. He refuses. He says, no, he doesn't open. He says, I didn't eat. No, he has eaten the butter. When Balarama says, then Yashoda says, let me see. And he opens his mouth, and what does she see? She sees the whole cosmos in his little mouth. All the planets, the sun, the moon, the earth, then her own village, Gokula, and her own home, and she herself is in his mouth. Seeing that, she just gets bewildered. She thinks, good heavens, he is Lord himself. And everything is in him, in his mouth. He just can gulp it, and in 1 second, the whole world will be finished. And here I am thinking, this is my son, this is my house, this is my thing, this I have to do, that I have to do. What sort of an ignorance is that? And she was seized with discrimination and renunciation, which are the two important things for realizing God. And immediately Sri Krishna noticed, oh, she's going to give up everything. Then my play will not be. Immediately he put a veil on her mind. Next moment, she forgot everything. And she took Krishna on her lap and cuddled him, hugged him, and all. This is how he does. This is the Vatsalya Bhava, the mother adoring the little Krishna. This is a picture for meditation. The next is Sri Krishna. Just imagine the little boy, 6-7 years, because they are children, they are not allowed to tend the cows. They can tend only the calves. The little ones take the calves and go to the forest. So Krishna with his friends and with a stick in his hand. Imagine, try to imagine the little boy with a yellow color cloth, bluish, with little bit of jewels, and with a stick in his hand and a basket of food. His lunch box in the hand, and they are all going to the forest with the calves. And then and the cows will be grazing, and kids will be playing, very nice. And it's afternoon. And the day before, or not the day before, just before that, Krishna had killed a demon called as Aghasura. Agha means sin. It's all allegorical, so you can take it. But the Bhagavata says it is real. So he had killed Aghasura, which was very difficult, and he had killed and as a python, and the python was like dead python, huge python was lying there, and Aghasura was killed. And after that, they all came. Anyway, now the fellow is killed and the cows are grazing. So let's sit and enjoy our lunch, afternoon lunch. So they all open their box and they eat. And as they keep eating, with that same hand, they feed Krishna too. Everything is going on well. And what happened? One of the boy, he said, look, I can't see those calves. What happened? Brahma, four-faced Brahma, from the heaven, he was observing, oh, this fellow, how can he be? How can my master stoop down to such an extent as becoming a cowherd boy? Or is he a magician? What is all this? So he wanted to test him. So what he did was, he hid the calves. And so the little boys came, Krishna, we don't find our calves. What happened? The cows also, they started grazing where the fresh grass are there. And so they just lost their way, and Brahma took it up. And poor boys, they were worried. And Krishna says, don't worry, you'll continue having. And the Bhagavata says, Krishna was eating, was mixing his yogurt rice. All just imagine the Lord, the yogurt rice is stuck to his hands, a morsel of rice is in his hand, and the other fellows had given some of the condiments. All is there in his hand, and he says, you stay here, I'll go and find out. And he goes in search of the calves. He doesn't find them. Tired, he comes back and sees that friends are also disappeared. All his friends have disappeared. What happened? He didn't know. He searched for them. And after some time, finally contemplated, what happened? How could this happen? Then he realized, oh, this is the trick of Brahma, the creator. Okay. So you also have got confused. It is because of your prayers I came, and now you also have been confused. Okay, I will teach you, I thought. And Krishna became all the calves, calves, the boys, the children, their jewels, their clothes, everything perfect, their color, their character, their habits, everything. Because, and then he says, look, these mothers of Vrindavan, the other boys' parents, they would always think, oh, how good it would have been if Krishna was my child. So all the women of Vrindavan had also felt that, that love for the child, Krishna, and they all wanted him to as their children, as a child. But everyone is not destined to, all are not fortunate like Yashoda. So he thought, today I will satisfy all the mothers of the Vrindavan. And he became all the children. Usually, as soon as Krishna comes, the mothers would make some delicacies and keep it waiting to feed Krishna. Today, nobody is feeding Krishna. Why? As soon as the mothers saw their children, they all ran and hugged the kids and they started feeding them. Nobody is feeding Krishna. Why? Their child itself is Krishna. Krishna became so many. And 1 year, Krishna lived in the house like calves in the cowshed, like children with the parents. So many Krishnas. All the children became Krishna. And it was such a joy. The whole of Vrindavan was full of Krishna. Every child was a Krishna. Every calf was a Krishna. The cows would run with the flowing udder to feed the calves. Such was the Yoga Maya. Sri Ramakrishna says, Yoga Maya is such a powerful thing. Sri Ramakrishna once went to a village, and there 7 days, 7 day and night continuously he was singing and dancing with the people. 7 days and nights. Can you imagine? Nobody bothered whether he ate or drank. Such is the power of Yoga Maya. So that something had happened literally like that. We saw it is real because it is written, recorded even now. In Sri Ramakrishna's life, who read, you can make out. 7 days. And everyone came to know there's a person has come who can die and come again and again. That is, every time he goes into Samadhi and he comes back. When he goes into the Samadhi, literally he is like dead. Sri Ramakrishna. And then so all came to see him. So 7 days, the Yoga Maya was there. The effect of Yoga Maya was there. Here also, 1 year. After 1 year, Brahma found nothing. Everything is as usual. Nothing is there. So Brahma comes to see Vrindavan, and there Krishna is going with the hand, yogurt rice in the hand, and he's going. And Brahma accepts his defeat. Then he recognizes, who is this person? He says, Shri Krishna reveals his universal form. So he is in everyone. He is in all of us. And that's the story of 2 of the stories. I have finished. And now coming to the main, as sadhakas, what are we to learn from him? Shri Krishna emphasized the bhakti. There is lot of things, Advaitic ideas are there, but Advaitic ideas are not for everybody. The first condition of Advaita Vedanta is we should have the idea that we are not body. We are not bodies. Imagine if this is the first step, where are we going to attain? How few of them in this world can realize this truth. That is why Shri Krishna says in the 12th chapter, Bhakti Jnana is very difficult for people who are having body consciousness. So he suggests bhakti. So who are the people who can practice bhakti? People who practice bhakti are they who are not very worldly. They're not worldly minded, not very worldly minded, not highly spiritual. They are endowed with a bit of renunciation, and perchance they come across somewhere and they hear, oh, this is something nice, and they listen. Somewhere some discourse is going on, and they hear it, and they're fascinated with that. Ah, that's wonderful. So this is also another way of thinking. Then they start their spiritual life. So by fortune or their punya karma, whatever you may call it, they come to know about God through some talks, through some music or something, and then their spiritual life starts. For such people, bhakti yoga is best. So see, we all are in that category. So we all belong to that category. And from there, we are trying to become more spiritual. So Sri Krishna says, very beautifully, he speaks in his 10th chapter of the Gita. What are those devotees? How do they think of him? What do they think of him? How do they contemplate on him? He says, see, aham sarvasya prabhavo mattha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitah. I am the origin of all. The people understand God alone is the origin, and this whole universe has come from him. It's not that they have realized, they have heard this. They have come to know this truth, that God is the origin of everything. And from me, that is, everything evolves. Everything has come out of, he is the origin, and everything has come out of him. Thus thinking, they worship. And with loving devotion, they worship, he says. So this is all we do. We have heard about that the whole universe has come from God, and we live in God, and God is our ultimate end, the goal. Everything goes back to God. This idea, we all know it. And so thinking of this, people start loving. This is first. And then he says, with their minds wholly in me, with their senses absorbed in me, enlightening each other and always speaking of me, they are satisfied and delighted. So that's the nature of devotees. When the devotees gather together, they talk about their Ishta. They talk, what book? Now, how do we do? What book did you read? What are your ideas? And we discuss like that. But we'll discuss spiritual matters, spiritual things. And if you are very temperamentally devotee, loving temperament, then you discuss. Mataji, you know how funny in the Kathamrita I read, Sri Ramakrishna said this. What a funny thing, isn't it? We discuss like that, don't we? That is how. And that's not that you are teaching me or I'm teaching. This is how we change our ideas, in exchange our ideas. So we teach, we listen, we learn. This is how our knowledge of God increases, he says. And then, thus, to them, ever steadfast and serving me with affection, I give that buddhi yoga. This is the promise of the Lord. If we contemplate on him, if we love his leelas, if we desire, think of him, and if we speak about him constantly, if at least half of our time, then he will light up. He will give us buddhi yoga. What is buddhi yoga? Right attitude. Our intelligence will itself tell us what is right, what is wrong, what to do, what not to do. for what's our priorities, what we can think later. All these things, our own intelligence, our buddhi will act like a guru. It will teach us. And then finally he says, out of mere compassion for them, I, abiding in their hearts, destroy the darkness in them, born of ignorance, by the luminous lamp of knowledge. I light the lamp of knowledge, and all the ignorance vanish from their heart. This is the promise the Lord has made. If we do our spiritual practice sincerely and pray to Lord, He will give us the Buddhi Yoga and light the lamp of knowledge in us. It is His promise. All we have to do is not that we get the knowledge and we do it. All these people who are practicing this, they are not endowed with realization, but they have heard. It's only the knowledge they have got. And that knowledge will become realization through His grace. And how many options He gives us? How many options? Fix your mind on me only, He says. Place your intellect in me. Then you shall, without fail, without doubt, be in me, in the Bhakti Yoga. This is one option. Keep Mayeva mana adhatsva. Mayi buddhim nivesha. Keep your buddhi in me. Having thus done, Mayeva, without doubt, there's no doubt about it, you will come to me. Then he sees the human weakness. Okay. Atachittam samadhatum nashaknoshi mayi sthiram. Okay. If you are not able to do this, if you are unable to fix your mind steadily on me, then do it by practice. Try to practice it. Make it an habit. If you make it an habit, at a particular time, you sit. No, this is the time for me to contemplate on God. I will sit. I will remember Him. Even repetition God of name of God is also remembering God. When you remember, when we say Krishna or Buddha or Jesus, what do we think? Do we think of somebody? No, we think of Krishna. We think of Jesus. We think of Buddha. So Nami is Abhed. The name and then whose name it is are one and the same. If we say Sridharaprana, I'll say, what happened? See, that's how we respond. Name and the person say, it's one and the same. So, even that. And he knows people are not able to do even that. Abhyasepi asamartha. See, okay, if you are not able to even practice that, be intent on doing actions for my sake. No, I'm not able to do this practice. Krishna, what am I to do? Okay. You are cooking. This is for Krishna. Krishna Arpanamastu. You are sweeping. I am sweeping Krishna's mansion. I am washing. These dishes are Krishna's. It is not just imagination or poetic ideas. This is fact. In Sri Ramakrishna's life, don't you remember a lady coming and telling Sri Ramakrishna, she says, I'm trying to meditate, but I'm not able to keep my mind on God. What am I to do? Then Sri Ramakrishna thought, if that is, whom do you like? Because the lady didn't have children. She was looking after the nephew. So she was naturally attached to the little nephew. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, fine, no problem. When you are doing everything to the nephew, when you fondle him, feed him, think that you are doing it for Krishna. And I believe the lady sincerely did it, and she had a degree of realization. See, all that counts is sincerity. And then finally he says, all the actions, whatever action you do it for me. I am doing this for Krishna. See, every act when we do, what are we doing? We are remembering Krishna. Even if you can't do this much, all right, take refuge in me. So we remember in Sri Ramakrishna's life, Girish Chandra Ghosh. He couldn't do anything and forced, he couldn't stand. He never liked to be forced. His nature was like that. He would do something by himself if he likes. But if you ask him to do it, he could feel the bondage. He couldn't promise somebody, I will do this. No. So when Sri Ramakrishna asked him, can you do this? Can you remember God morning and evening? That's it. Oh, no, I can't do. I don't know where I will be, what I will be doing. Sorry, sir, I can't do it. And Sri Ramakrishna gave so many options. Nothing. At last, Sri Ramakrishna said, okay, then give me a power of attorney. You don't have to do anything. I will do. And then Girish was very happy. Bah, that's a nice thing. I don't have to do anything. I'm released from the bondage of duty. So I can be free. Sri Ramakrishna will do everything. So I'm so happy. And without thinking, second, here, Master, I give you my power of attorney. But one thing you remember, with all his weaknesses, Girish was very truthful. That was there. And God is Satya Sankalpa, truth itself. When Girish said that I have given my responsibility to you, he meant it. He meant it. He was 100% sure that he did give. And he was very happy. Whenever something, as usual, he was doing, which is not right, his buddhi, buddhi yoga, the Lord has already entered in him. He would say, you gave the master the result of your action. Do you want to give a bad action to him? So he desisted from that action. You see how Sri Ramakrishna was trying to make him. He didn't tell him, you desist from this action. Don't drink, don't do this, don't do that. No, do whatever you want. But all the karma phala is coming to me. So naturally, you wouldn't give anything bad to one whom you love. Christ tells, even parents don't give hard stuff to the children. What to speak of God? Isn't it? No parents have ever given a hard stuff to their children to eat. How much care we take to feed our children. Delicacy, soft, good, nutritious. We don't give junk food for our children. Those who really love their children. So, if that is so, how much more should we give good things for God, whom we love him? So naturally, if every action, the result of action is going to God, then you do good actions. Because good results will go to God. I want to give good things to God. There's one story in Mahabharata. Listen, you're very fond of. So once Krishna said, give all your results of your actions, I'll take. I'm ready to take it. Arjuna was very happy. Arjuna never did anything bad, but still he always felt like human beings, we have that guilt. Anyway, so he wanted to give all the good actions, whatever actions what he has done as a result of the action to Krishna. Immediately Bhima said, don't give. Why? Anything you give to Krishna will come 100-fold back. So give only good actions. Don't give evil actions. Don't give all actions. It is better for us to go through the karma of evil actions by ourselves in one life than getting 100 times back in return. This is God is Akshaya, He gives a lot, whatever you give. So give the best. Give the best to God. So that is how Sri Ramakrishna made him day by day Girish Chandra Ghosh, nobler, righteous, not by asking him not to do. He never asked him to. But through love and taking his responsibility, he redeemed him from all evil habits. So this is what Sri Krishna is doing for us. Last, if you can't do anything, surrender to me completely. But that surrender should be 100% true. So finally, and so this is how it comes. We have one incident of a person, like I said, the Bhakti Yoga is practiced by person, how casually when somebody hears, there is one devotee from the society. She casually happened to go near rocks where our shop was. She saw Vedanta bookstores and she entered and she saw that She saw everything. And she came to know there will be talks here by Ajapana Mataji. And so the next week she came, she heard, and she became one of the staunch devotee of the society. You must be knowing Ula, you must have heard of her. And I believe, Gayatri Pranaji told me, I don't know, must be the carers who were looking after her in her old age, they must have told this. Gayatri Pranaji said that Ula one day exclaimed, even Buddha and Jesus have come before her death. She said, and those people couldn't understand what she was telling. They thought she's hallucinating. But I say blessed hallucination. If by hallucination itself, if we can think of Krishna, Jesus and Buddha, what more we need, isn't it? This whole universe is an hallucination we still don't understand. So I believe Sri Ramakrishna Holy Mother Swamiji is there. That's known because she has surrendered herself to them. So she is sure if they come to bless her in the last moment of her life, that's she. But even Buddha, Jesus, she had not given much importance to them. But because every time she adored them in the altar, even they have, so this can happen. Then how much of hope it gives us. I was so happy when I heard this. Our own devotee, in her last days, she said this, whatever it might be, even if it is an hallucination, I say it's a hallucination, blessed hallucination. So if we love Lord and think of him to the best of our effort, how much ever we can, whatever we can, he is sure to help us and our lives will be blessed. In just his teaching is, this is what he has taught to us. Be ever active for the sake of dharma. Be ever active for the sake of dharma, for the good of others, but never be selfish. Do your work as best as you can. Follow dharma and have firm faith that it will protect you. Do not run away from problems of life. Face them or transcend them. And never forget that the final goal of life is liberation. Strive your best to attain it through jnana and bhakti and be free. Thank you.
Sridharaprana was just mentioning about Ulla. She was a very good painter. For those of you who don't know, these two paintings are Ulla's handiwork, amongst many others that she did for the society. We've got some special events coming up. The usual ones, we've got the yoga classes Thursday. We've got the fortnightly Bhagavad Gita discussion coming up next Friday night. It'll be led by Sridharaprana in the absence of Gayatri Pranaji. And next Sunday, we have we're hoping to have a meditation day. We need a minimum 10 people to enroll. We haven't reached that number yet. So we'll decide, our weekly email will go out on Tuesday night. So we'll decide whether we're going ahead with it then. So I think all of you are on our email list. You'll be able to know from that. I guess plan B would be, in the absence of the whole meditation day, perhaps Sridharaprana, you can give a talk related to meditation next Sunday. So one way or the other, we'll have an event here next Sunday. Then the following Sunday, the 24th, Sridharaprana will continue her monthly series of talks on the Kena Upanishad. And this talk will be covering the chapter 2. That's on 24th. In October, we've got a very special event, exploring pilgrimages from East and West. And Sridharaprana will be sharing her knowledge of the Jyotirlingams, the 12 temples associated with Shiva. And we'll also have Ron Regal will be coming. Ron is many things. He's a writer, he's a musician, he's an artist, and he also describes himself as a pilgrim. He's been on many pilgrimages, so he'll be able to share his experiences and knowledge of those. And we're also very happy that Ron's partner, Vicky, will be coming. She's an excellent musician. She composes music for documentaries for a lot of the major TV channels here, and so on. So the two of them will provide some live music as part of the program. And that's all on Sunday, the 8th of October. And we'll be promoting that from this next email we're sending out on Tuesday. You'll see information about that. So now, thanks everyone for coming today for our celebration, and thanks to those joining us via Zoom. Please stay back and get a share of the sweets and savories. Oh, and by the way, Gayatri Pranaji flew out on Wednesday to India. She's now in Dehradun, and I think tomorrow they're going to start their very special pilgrimage right up into the Himalayas, Kedarnath, Badrinath, Gangotri, so on. There'll be a little group of them. So we'll be interested to hear about all of that when she gets back.